Welcome to Easily Entertained. My name is Bryson Olson, and here we talk about all aspects of entertainment. It's always a great time. Today, we are talking about a movie that I thought looked interesting when it was in theaters, but never really got around to seeing it. But recently, it came out on Max, starring good old Robert Pattinson, who crushes it in pretty much everything. Mickey 17, a very weird little story of like cloning and future technology and colonization of new worlds, like planets and stuff. It's a little fascinating. So I thought we would talk about it. I thought the movie was pretty good, like pretty decent, kind of weird, but pretty decent. So I kind of wanted to get into why it's pretty good though. So let's dive into it. Okay, so the first thing about Mickey 17 that I really find interesting is kind of the whole premise of it. So Mickey, our main character, Mickey Barnes, he is selected for this program. Well, he volunteers for this program called the Expendable program, where basically his mind is copied and they can reprint him a body with the uploaded memories of the previous copy. So they are kind of using him as like a test subject for a million different things for this little space voyage that causes them to go out and colonize a new world. And Mickey, he's going because he's trying to get away from like this lone thing that he got himself into. He's like, you know what, screw it. Let's just go off world. We don't have to worry about it. And the reason they're going off world for this is so they can actually test this little expendable project, because on Earth it's illegal. But that brings in some weird moral implications then, which is how ethical is it to copy a person, whether they're willing to or otherwise. So in the movie, they have the idea of the person who invented it. He copies himself and then commits a series of murders. They call this multiples. So too much is going wrong, basically. So the idea of cloning these people is so that they can essentially live forever. It's kind of like a weird eternal life kind of thing, but not exactly. Like the body can still waste away, but the mind doesn't. They upload all the memories and then upload them into a new body. They're basically doing what video games would have, which is like a respawn point where you save everything, and as soon as you die, you go back to that saved point. So like in the movie, since they're doing him as like a test subject for a bunch of things, every time he does it, they try to like refresh his mind quickly. Like every week they re-upload his memories so that there aren't huge gaps in between deaths, as they would say. So anytime he dies, okay, they print out a new body, let's upload his memories from past week previous, and so on and so on. And that gets really interesting. And it also begs the question of who is Mickey. You know, you kind of have this ship of Theseus problem where is the mind the person or is the body the person? And then it really gets weird when, is it halfway through the movie? I don't know if it's halfway, but like into the movie a little bit, they accidentally print one while one didn't die. Multiples is illegal in this little universe, so they can't be printing several people of the same person at a time. It has to only be one existing. They then have that own conversation where which one is the real Mickey, and every Mickey kind of varies in certain little aspects. So you kind of run into that, like I said, the ship of Theseus type problem, where if the mind is the person, what about the body? But also neither is the same. But are they're both technically Mickey? Like you're deconstructing it, reassembling the old pieces. They are both Mickey, but they're also both their individual ship. So that kind of gets into a whole weird little situation. I feel like the more you dive into it, that's kind of what happens. I think in now context, we're kind of starting to see this as an ethical dilemma. Like not just in the context of the movie, but in the idea of cloning in general. Because like there are companies that want to bring back certain species or re-engineer them in a way. And it's like talking about like the direwolf thing that happened recently. Like they're not really direwolves. They're genetically engineered gray wolves that look what we think are direwolves, but they're not. Their DNA isn't exactly the same, but you are going to run into this kind of problem where if we get it close enough, does that work? You have this whole weird little thing about cloning, and they don't do it much about like the de-extinction thing, but I do think it gets into that kind of nature that like the Jurassic Park movies also play on, where like you're cloning, you're rebuilding people. It's causing a little bit of, not uncanny valley, but a little bit of weirdness when you really start to think about it, because what is actually making this thing it? You know, what makes Mickey? If you, the direwolf situation, what makes them direwolves? They want to bring back the mammoth. What will make it a mammoth? You start to get into this almost existential conversation, which is, what is blank? You know, what are we? What is life? What is anything? It feels like something we've sort of seen before, but not really. I really like that aspect.
Fellow pioneers, almost every single one of you will be remembered throughout history.
So I briefly touched on it in the first section, but this movie also kind of focuses on like some dark future aspects, some present as well. But the idea of like us ruining our planet, colonizing other planets, technology rapidly advancing, using it in weird, unethical ways, things that are happening now and will probably continue to happen for a long time, which is really sad. But it kind of almost shows like a future of what could life be like sort of soon. So the colonizing planets type thing. Okay, let's get that idea out now. Okay, let's stop thinking about that. Okay, no more colonizing planets. We don't want to do that. We should probably prioritize the little blue one that we're already on, that we're constantly killing. Okay, but anyways, be that as it may, we would probably do the same to other planets. And that's kind of like the whole subject that they're also talking about here, where the like leader, like he's like the senator, I think is what they say, he's elected or whatever. In this movie, his name's Kenneth Marshall. He's played by Mark Ruffalo, who he does an amazing job. His whole thing, like when they go there, he's like, we'll be free from law. We'll get to do whatever we want. I'll get to mold this perfect society, this perfect human race on this planet that we are going to conquer and steal from these other living creatures. But that whole thing gets a little bit weird, where we are taking things a little bit out of hand, or the case of technology as well. Okay, why do they want to clone people? In this movie, they kind of are talking about it as like a way to kind of extend life, essentially, where they can all keep on living. They upload their mind and then they print out a new body. Awesome. I think in theory, that's a really cool idea, but obviously they show like some of the malpractices that could come from doing something like that. And that parallels with other things now of where technology kind of gets used to bad extents. Think even simple things like ChatGPT. In theory, a very harmless thing. Okay, something that scrapes information and tries to put it back out to you in a way that sort of makes sense. Okay, in theory, that's great. In practice, it's not working out great. Like kids doing research papers, but just having ChatGPT do them, so they're not learning anything. Or generative AI that steals from artists and isn't actually printing out anything original. These are malpractices of a technology that in theory could be helpful and useful and good, but we take it to the wrong place. That's what this movie kind of seems to exhibit, as a dark future of us taking everything to the wrong situation, taking it to the wrong extent, colonizing planets, not to help ourselves or to help other planets or to do something worthwhile, but really just to colonize, to conquer other worlds. Technology expands for similar reasons. You copy minds in order to extort them and to use them in new bodies and run experiments on them. It is just, how do we exploit this? And not the main guy, because the main character is Mickey, obviously, but the main pusher for this idea is Kenneth Marshall, because he's doing all that. He's like, oh, we can use this illegal technology outside of planet Earth and then we'll be fine. We can make this whole planet how I want. And, I already said that earlier, but still, okay, this guy is what's pushing for, and that's always how it goes. It's always a couple, if not a person, that is pushing for those kind of things. And that's how we end up with a future like Mickey 17, where things get a little bit too out of hand and we don't stop and think, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Should we be doing it? Nope. They just kind of rush in. So maybe, while this movie isn't like a freaking philosophical thing, just maybe, we can't take that out of it to stop, listen, and think about things before we just start rushing into them. Cloning? Okay, cool idea. How do we do that in an ethical practice? How do we push technology forward, like with artificial intelligence, without making a malpractice? How do you clone a mind, or how do you colonize a living planet without doing it for bad reasons? We're probably not going to colonize living planets, stuff that has Earth-like things while we are all alive. But, future us's, if this is still out there, please think so that we don't start anything bad. Let's not have a dark future. I think that would be great.
Why aren't you dead? Multiples.
So now lastly, after I talked about the interesting cloning conversation and the dark future that we could potentially have that would be very similar to Mickey 17, I just want to talk about what also made the movie part good, like not just the conversation around it, but the actual movie. The performances. Holy crap. Okay, holy crap. So good. So good. We'll talk about Robert Pattinson's in a minute, because his is probably the best performance, 100%. We'll push him to last for a second, save the best for last. I also think his partner in the movie, she's played by Naomi Ackie. Her name's Nasha. She's like an agent, like a police officer almost. Awesome. She chews up the scenery. She's so funny. I like her emotional tie to Mickey and Mickey's emotional tie to her, and that kind of helps lead things throughout the rest of the movie, which I really like. I think that serves as a good driving force for Mickey's character, and she's her own character too, and she's still pretty three-dimensional. I do like that she is kind of used as motivation for Mickey. You also have, like I said, the guy who plays Kenneth Marshall, Mark Ruffalo, who does absolutely an amazing job. His character's super over the top, almost cult leader like, and he's super weird. He's spouting off speeches that don't really make any sense of the things that he's promising, kind of like a certain president we know. And he does it in just a way that's enough to get certain people attached, but not everybody. Everyone's kind of okay, whatever. And that's how that kind of goes. But then that's also how he pushes his own agendas on things. And yeah, his character is he's really weird. And it almost gives uncanny valley Mark Ruffalo, because he has this, I think prosthetic teeth in while they're acting. And so it gives his face a slightly different shape, and it just looks a little weird. I think just because I'm used to seeing normal Mark Ruffalo more often. So when that happened, I was like, what the? He looks a little bit weird here. But his character is super interesting, and I think he also, like Nasha, propels Mickey's character forward, because Mickey could give a crap about Marshall. Okay, he does not care. In fact, he doesn't really like him for several things, like throughout their voyage, but you know, that kind of helps push him forward. Also, Marshall's wife, I don't remember what her name, Ilfa, I think that's how they pronounce her name. I do not remember exactly, but holy crap, her character, she's played by Toni Collette, who is a like thriller genius, basically. Thriller, mystery, you know, she's awesome. I love whenever she's in things, she chews it up. And in this one, them together, Ilfa and Kenneth Marshall, holy crap, they are the weirdest little conniving duo that is just running everything, running this cult-like crew, essentially. So weird, but so fascinating. Like, you just can't help but hate these two characters. You're like, oh my gosh, they're just propelling weird stuff. You know, they like call for Mickey to be experimented on in certain ways or different things like that. It's just, whoa, it's so weird. And every time you see them on screen, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for them to die at the end of the movie. And you know it's going to happen. You know it's going to happen. That's the kind of characters they gave you. They're like, oh yeah, we're going to kill them because you won't like these characters. And you're like, great, I really don't. So I do love that about them. Okay, now let's talk about, obviously, the best character. That's Mickey, okay, played by Robert Pattinson. Holy crap, he's so good. And what I really love about his performance is it's just so fun to watch actors play different versions of a character. The version we see at the very beginning of the movie, like when he's back on Earth, is pretty different from the several other versions that we see throughout the movie. The two like multiples that we eventually see, so Mickey 18 and Mickey 17. Mickey 17 is kind of like a little timid, a little like, oh my gosh, I don't know about this, man. Like, that's a little crazy. And then you have Mickey 18, who's kind of crazy and just wants to go start killing people, man. Is a little wild. So getting to see those characters interact or him just change his performance throughout the movie, awesome. It's so good. And it's amazing the American accent that Robert Pattinson can do, which is really funny because in this movie, not all the crew or cast is doing an American accent. In fact, a lot of them are not. Like, British accents are also pretty present in this movie. He could have just done that, but hey, it totally works. It propels the hobo vibe that he's kind of going for, where he's like down on his luck. He's like, well, I'm desperate for anything. So he signs up for the expendable program. But then later, when you get to see 18 and 17 interact, I love seeing actors do that because it's so fascinating. Because obviously there's not two Robert Pattinsons. So having to figure out a way where your characters interact and are still distinct from each other is so cool. I thought it was so much fun. I loved it. I thought he was great. His performance, especially, through the roof. So good, because he's just awesome. But I think that's what really helps kind of sell you on all the concepts that are going throughout the movie. It sells you on the cloning. It sells you on the weird dark future stuff. It sells you on the whole culty vibe of the ship, of the future colonization type thing. It's all so weird, but the performances are what sell it. And I think that's what makes this movie so much fun to watch. It's pretty great. If you've seen it, I hope you also agree. If you don't, I mean, that's fine. But it's pretty good, I gotta say. At least it's enjoyable. Okay, it might not be the greatest movie out there, but it's quite an enjoyable movie. Okay, so speaking of, let's talk about our rating for Mickey 17. If you don't know our easily entertained rating scale from least to best, it goes garbage, once is fine, right mood, quotable, go to and all day, every day. And I would say Mickey 17 is probably a right mood for me. Like, it's a good movie. Okay, like it's a pretty decent movie. However, it is not going to be my first choice. Okay, in fact, I will probably not think about it for a while, and then I'll randomly see it and be like, oh yeah, I remember that movie. It was a little bit weird, but it was an interesting watch. So that kind of puts that at a right mood for me. If you have a different rating for Mickey 17, let us know down in the comments. You know, I'd love to hear your thoughts. But that is it for this episode of Easily Entertained. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like and subscribe so you can be notified of all new episodes when they come out every Tuesday. It's always a great time. And if you have media or entertainment that you'd like to hear me talk about, also comment that below. You know, I might get around to it sometime. So, that being said, until next time, bye!